Alright, YouTube, the Anti-Defamation League, that meaningless institution of yesteryear that nobody really pays attention to anymore, decided it wanted some cheap tabloid press coverage, so they decided that Smug Pepe, sad frog, happy frog, smug frog, whatever, is a hate symbol. In other words, they've put it in their database, and they made sure to link it with the alt-right number one, which they claim is like skinheads, which I thought was slightly funny. Considering that there are black people within the alt-right, but okay, America first, we get it, it's bigoted, or something, I suppose. They decided that Smug Pepe was normally like a skinhead thing. That is, Smug Pepe either used in general, or especially if it's like Hitler Pepe or something like that. That's racism. I think, by the way, that's kind of obvious. Like, doesn't that sort of overlap with, oh, well, the swastika's a hate symbol? Well, yeah, so if the frog has a swastika on his head and is saying gas the Jews or something, it's a hate symbol? Well, no shit, I never would have guessed that somebody who was using that was probably a Nazi. I never would have understood that. But they go further and they say, oh, well, just regular Smug Pepe might denote that a person's ideology is like really, really hardcore right now. I'm finding it difficult to understand how nationalism in like an American sense overlaps with German nationalism, since they're two totally different states, number one. I don't understand how right-wing economics would figure in, because isn't that just like, do you want more or less government spending or taxation or so? How does this have to do with race? I think what you mean is on a limited number of social issues, more traditionalist leaning. But they don't make that differentiation. They'd rather just use the term alt-right or like hard left or something like that. The European newspapers do this all the time. No, Smug Pepe is not a hate symbol. For instance, I made up a little image where Pepe has like glasses, there's like a libertarian flag on the wall, and it's supposed to represent me, and I'm like shitposting at a computer tuned on to 4chan. There's like a nuclear cloud outside the window. I've posted on 4chan before. I made that image for myself just to sort of identify myself as a joke. I thought it was funny. But that doesn't mean that I'm the next Adolf Hitler or something like that. It doesn't mean that I even really care about race. Because I don't, honestly. Sometimes people from the alt-right, honestly, I think are astonished if they're like a racial nationalist style, like quasi-fringe alt-right. They say, oh, how can cultural nationalism exist? That's just like retarded or something. I'm an American nationalist, which means I'm a libertarian. I happen to be a libertarian who doesn't believe in open borders. It's really the only thing I really care about differentiating myself from the libertarian movement on. I just don't want so much government. I don't want government telling me who I can fuck or anybody who they can fuck. I don't want it telling me who I can marry or anybody who they can marry. It's just a fucking state contract. Who gives a damn? I don't want them telling women that they can't get an abortion. I don't want them telling me what kind of weapons I can own. I don't want them taxing me up the yin-yang. I don't even believe, by the way, that taxation is theft. I just think taxation becomes theft when it's excessive. Right now, it's far too excessive. We do significantly need to lower taxes. If I was in office, I'd just slash all the alphabet soup agencies we don't need, cut the budget of every other government office, and then lower the tax rate by like 10% or something. Be easy enough to do. It wouldn't be that difficult. You could eliminate the property tax altogether. You wouldn't even need it. Do a national sales tax, get rid of the property tax, get rid of, or severely reduce the income tax, make it more flat, simplify the corporate tax code. Doesn't make somebody a Nazi. It doesn't make somebody a Nazi or a skinhead or a Klan member. I'm not even a Christian. I couldn't join the Ku Klux Klan. Most Nazis are like Christian identity of some sort or another. I find it funny that they're not pagans or something. I am a pagan. But I don't really care about the racial issue. When I say libertarian or nationalist or pagan, it means that I have more in common with somebody from Nigeria who's proud of being Nigerian, wants to keep Nigeria Nigerian, and keep out, like, even white foreigners, and hold to, like, pagan animism. I will have more respect for them than somebody who is a white European who doesn't care about the issue, says, oh, fuck, open borders forever, and as a Christian. I don't have anything in common with them. I'm not even from Europe. I'm from the United States. My family's been here for 400 years. Why the hell would I care about European culture? I'm an American, not a European. The people came over here to get away from European culture. I think that's something that I really need to mention here. For all the alt-right individuals coming here, I am a cultural nationalist. That means I don't care who comes here. But, and here's one thing I'll agree on them with. If they're going to come here, they better goddamn assimilate to U.S. culture. I don't want people coming into this country who don't believe in civil rights, who don't believe in the freedom to worship or not worship. I don't want people coming in here that are going to, at the first possible opportunity, beg for more government. That kind of defeats the purpose of libertarianism. This is one thing that I can't wrap my head around. How can, like, the Gary Johnson libertarians be dumb enough to think that if they throw open the borders to just any Johnny-come-lately, that libertarianism, once established, just destroys itself? It goes down the drain. Because you're not imposing any pressure on anybody to assimilate to even a general overview of your culture. But no, Smug Pepe is not a racist thing at all. It's literally nothing more than a cartoon frog. If somebody turns it into Hitler Pepe and starts linking you to, the Nazi national anthem or something, yeah, there's a chance that person's a Nazi. Either that or they're just a fan of industrial music and they happen to, I don't know, they like diesel punk or something like that. They're just into that. They want to ride the Hindenburg. They want their own blimp in their garage or something. Who fucking cares? Who cares if somebody's a skinhead? That would be my other question. Why exactly should I care if somebody's racist? Now I'll let that sink in for a moment. Why should I care? Does it mean that their economic views are potentially any less than anybody else's? No. Has nothing to do with it. Does it mean that their cultural views are necessarily wrong? No. I'll debate them. I'll probably disagree with them, especially on the topic of what form nationalism ought to take. I'll say it's about assimilation to a culture. They'll say it's about assimilation into a hegemonic racial group. I will counter and say, well, there was a time when all these different European groups were considered different races, and the Irish were like Iberian, they were considered like half black or something, and South Europeans and North Europeans were like... And it just gets into minutia that it really makes no sense to me. But that debate can be had. I'm just asking, under what objective basis should I completely ignore everything they have to say because they happen to have like a profile icon that has Hitler Pepe or something like that? Do I care? No, I don't. I also talk to people with swastikas as their icon on YouTube. I don't care that they have a swastika there. Or Yggdrasil or something. I don't care. I don't care if they say 1488, Hail Thor, Heil Hitler, and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that I can't have a logical, reasonable argument with them. It just happens to mean that I deeply disagree with them on a few political and social issues. But then again, I also deeply disagree on some political and social issues with the average social justice warrior who supposedly is on the completely opposite side. And I say they're basically an even more sensitive style of Nazi who wants to homogenize the human race in a way. It's like they get this weird fetish for doing that. They don't want anybody to have any differences. It's like a real hive mind, like homogenizing mentality. I also wonder if anybody cares what the ADL has to say, unless they're like maybe a hardcore Zionist, a real social justice warrior, or they're a member of the ADL itself. We're no longer in the era of Nazi hunters. We're no longer in the era where people that were actually in the Third Reich, unless they were really, really young, like some 3-year-old in the Hitler Youth might still be alive. They're geriatric, but they might still be there. But as far as people who were operative in the Second World War and actually had any part in it at all, they ever remembered seeing Hitler speak or something like that. As far as people from the heyday of the Klan back when it conducted lynchings, there are very few and an ever-decreasing number of people from those eras. I like to believe the way to get past the race issue, whether it's the United States or elsewhere, is to stop fixating constantly on microaggression and all of these other little things that are being thrown out there. I think that it just stirs the pot and makes things worse, and that the real threat is that you'll have another generation of people who can't see past race. It's impossible for them to do so because they've been, in a way, they've been triggered by like the social justice warriors, I suppose. In that sense, the actual cultural left, not democratic partisans, but the cultural left, in a way, is fucking itself. I don't think they even realize it. Honestly, I'll give them a pass on this. I don't think it's for any corrupt reason. I just think that they don't understand exactly what they're doing because they don't have that much intelligence. They can't grasp the sociological impact, the cultural impact of the sorts of things that they're doing. When they have like the safe spaces, trigger warnings, special snowflake microaggressions, and like otherkin and stuff like that, I honestly think they're too ignorant to understand how other people react to that. And so I think they don't understand that they're really digging their own grave and they're going to bury their own movement because it's going to fall out of favor real fucking fast because the pendulum has begun to swing in the other direction. As for the ADL and Smug Pepe, no, I don't care. I have a Smug Pepe of me. It doesn't make me a Nazi. You know, it's got the that's my purse, I don't know you sort of libertarian flag joke on there. So, yeah, obviously, I don't really give a fuck about the racial issue. I just can't bring myself to. I've had people try to make like these long-winded arguments to me about why I should believe in racial homogeneity. But I'm somewhat insulated from that because I've actually been to areas that are majority-minority. And all I saw was Americana. Like when I was in southern Texas, I didn't really see that many Mexican flags flying. I know you want to talk about La Raza and Mexican nationalism. I didn't see that. Everyone I saw considered themselves an American. Well, first they consider themselves a Texan first, if they're down there. It's sort of mandatory. They're a Texan first. See people with like cowboy hats and stuff like that. They're eating the slightly Mexicanized burger with the avocado, which by the way is very tasty, I will say. But no, American before Mexican American. They don't even really play the identity game. I don't think people realize this. People who haven't actually been to a Hispanic heavy area don't seem to understand. They think that Hispanics have this morbid fascination with trying to make the U.S. like Mexico. And that's not what I saw at all. Now, what I saw is, honestly, they wish Mexico was like the United States. Because the United States, they can actually get ahead. So yeah, I believe in American nationalism. I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe when we're exceptional, when we don't have the government doing stupid shit especially, people want generally to assimilate into our culture. I think our government fucks this up. When people talk about assimilation problems, what they're not understanding is that it's the post-90s police state, surveillance state, everything's costly, government fucked the job markets, government pissed everyone in the world off with its fucking wars. That's the reason why there are assimilation problems. There's less of a reason for people to feel optimistic. There's less of a reason for people to be patriotic. There's less of a reason for any foreigner to care about our national values because we've begun to resemble some of the other powerful states. We're not the powerful state. In the minds of many, in a psychological manner, we've simply become a powerful state. We can't let this happen. We have to reverse this trend. We have to crush the police state. We have to crush the surveillance apparatus, wipe it out entirely, get rid of it, ban it constitutionally so it can never come back. We have to start holding politicians accountable. We have to stop pretending, by the way, that the reason why these idiots are in office isn't because people simply are too stupid to vote against them. They're too stupid to consider challengers when you have some incumbent in there for 20, 30 years. They're too stupid to look at third parties. They're too stupid to speak out. That's the problem. The people are not blameless in this. DC is corrupt because the people are lazy, largely. The general population of the United States simply does not have the energy necessary, it seems, or the ambition necessary to get rid of these politicians who are voted for. They're always getting challenged, but they never get pushed out of Congress. Why is this? Could it be because people always take up the lesser of two evils mentality? Yeah, of course it is. So yeah. I don't care what the ADL says. I don't care what anybody thinks about Pepe or the alt-right or something. I don't have any problem with the alt-right. But I'm only on the fringes of it. Because I'm not a racial nationalist. I'm a cultural nationalist. Now, if a traditional ethno-state, the UK, France, Nigeria, something like that, if they want to form an ethnic state and be homogenous, no problem. Don't care. You were an ethno-state to begin with. You had a specific race and culture, a specific ethnicity within your country. It's like when people say, "Oh, whites are so racist." Well, what kind of whites? Do you mean like Italian whites? Greeks? Do you mean Aegean Turks? Do you mean people who are English in heritage or Scottish? By the way, don't mix them up, they'll get very angry. Do you mean like French or Spaniard blood or something? I mean, there's so many different types of white people. You're acting like they're all the same. You're actually, in a way, being bigoted because you don't appear to understand that there are differences between these groups that in some cases were separate for thousands of years. They're not the same. People don't want to understand this. It isn't until the very modern period that you have much interbreeding, lots of inbreeding in some of these places, admittedly, going on between some of these states. They were like ethno-states until, a century ago, sometimes less. Some of them, they basically still are. You're not going to get, if you go to some of these states and you're not part of that culture, you're going to be sort of an outcast. I think people sometimes, the SJWs, they don't even realize how welcoming the United States really is. Because here there are already so many different ethnicities and tongues and so forth, there's so many different linguistic forms, so many different slang usages and accents, and people of so many different races, that it's going to be hard to find an area of the country where there's not some enclave community. It's like here. The biggest group of legal immigrants here in Vermont is from Bhutan. Same as in New Hampshire. Now, I didn't know this until a couple years ago. I mean, I could find it on a map. I know a little about their culture. Watched a couple documentaries. Actually quite fascinating. But I didn't realize that there were like thousands of Bhutanese immigrants within this state. I wouldn't have known that. Had to look it up. There aren't many immigrants in Vermont anyway. It's kind of a miserable climate for most people. Unless they're like Finnish. I don't know why people from like Russia and Finland don't move here. They'll be right at home. It's exactly the same sort of climate as like central Finland or maybe parts of southern Siberia or something like that. It's basically, we're an inland, very cold, snowy state with a lot of lake effect snow generally. Short summer, tends to be kind of dark in our state. Come here. Yeah, let the Finnish people come. Let the Scandinavians come. The people from Denmark and Iceland and stuff like that. If you want to move to the States, you should be looking at northern New England. Otherwise, you'd be sweltering 6 months out of the year. So yeah, just a little bit about the ADL. I know it's a little bit of a rant and tangent, but that's okay. A lot of people enjoy watching that, so why should I stop? That's about all. Peace out.